We're back now speaking with Cynthia Ferguson, the Toronto designer you may recall from her Homeworthy holiday home tour. She's here to show us how modern craftsmanship and handmade details are making a real impact in luxury interiors. Welcome, Cynthia.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I am meeting you for the first time in real life, but I feel like I already know you from your amazing Homeworthy episode.
Thank you. It's been great to be able to connect with so many of your viewers through that. I have to say, it was probably one of the most warm and welcoming audiences ever.
Thank you for saying that. I loved the look that you had during this tour, and it was the holidays, so it was so festive. And I'm thrilled that you received such warm feedback, although I'm not surprised.
Thank you. It was great, and it was so super to do it. I absolutely loved it.
It is funny to look kind of at holiday footage right now. I feel like we're like
sitting in Orlando.
Sitting in 80-degree weather. But how do you approach design when it comes to your own house?
Cautiously.
Really?
Yes. I would say that more often than not, I keep fabrics and finishes and lamps galore that I absolutely love and hope to place with clients. And then when I don't, we try them out at home. So often I take a risk at home and we'll do things that clients might find difficult just to show them what's possible.
And then you can show them that it works.
I can show them that it works, or I can tell them that actually it didn't work.
And, okay, so then if it doesn't work, what do you do with the item?
Well, we might change it and adapt it in a way that might work.
You would use it differently. It doesn't mean you need to get rid of it. You just find a new home for it.
Yes, or a new application.
Okay.
Yeah.
How would you describe your personal sense of design?
Definitely maximalist, layered, curated, and traditional.
Okay, so I have a question because I love the all black look that you're wearing. Do you normally dress in neutral colors but have sort of this maximalist sense of design at home?
So no, traditionally I'm always in color. In fact, one of my friends today said to me, "I've never seen you in black."
Oh, that's so funny.
And I said, "Yes, but there's a little bit." And then the back of my jacket,
oh my gosh,
or I guess this way.
Wait, hold on.
Here's my
Can we see this?
maximalism.
Turn around. Look at this.
Yeah.
This gorgeous serpent.
So
that's your wow moment.
Yes, I'm black and white today, but there's always a little pizzazz.
So speaking of pizzazz, we're going to talk about a return of craftsmanship.
Yes.
Because I think that is such a fascinating topic, and you were just discussing it on the Luxury Lounge.
We were.
What are some of the takeaways from that?
I think really that craftsmanship has always been around and is here to stay. And one of the concerns that really was raised in our panel was that the new generation isn't going into the makers, the craftsmanship field. And the concern for really what will happen when that generation isn't producing or going into those types of arts, and are they going to be gone? So that was one of the...
Why are the new generations not going to craftsmanship?
I feel like they don't necessarily understand the impact that they could have in creating. And I also know from my own experience that a lot of trades and craftsmen don't really understand that there's a whole business aspect to it. So it's not just about being an incredible plaster maker or artist. You also have to know how to run a business, and perhaps they don't really know how big that business could be.
I think that can be such a tricky line, though, for artists and craftsmen, because they're so good at what they do.
Yes.
And the marketing aspect of it and the business aspect is maybe just not part of the equation for them because they're truly artists.
Very true. Not that much different from interior designers.
Sure. How do you see the return of craftsmanship in kitchen and baths specifically?
I think that one of the areas that we've really seen it in kitchens and baths is in tiles lately. I am seeing an awful lot of handcrafted tiles and stamped tiles. We were talking this morning about the return of the 90s, and that we're seeing kiln-fired tiles again, and that they're stamped with shapes for that handmade quality that everybody really relishes as a slow production instead of fast production. And I can see the tiles, lighting in kitchens and baths, custom and craftsmanship constantly. That seems to be a moment that we're really seeing explode right now, is handmade light fixtures.
So say someone is not working with a designer. Like, I wouldn't know how to go about finding a beautiful tile that's maybe vintage and dates back to an earlier time period. I mean, what, I would check on Etsy. Where do I look?
Yes, Etsy.
Really?
Seriously. We've actually been buying quite a significant number of products from makers on Etsy, and we look at it as a lower risk because the acquisition price usually isn't very high. So it might be a $400, oh, that didn't work, as opposed to a $10,000, oh, that didn't work, if you're working at the higher end. I would say more than anything, when our Etsy products come in, we're blown away by the craftsmanship and what we can get and how beautiful the objects are for a very budget-friendly moment in a room, which we were saying, instead of high-low, now it's slow-fast combination, which we've really loved.
Let's talk about sort of modern craftsmanship. Because I think some people might think, oh, I don't want my house to feel like too dated or too old. How do you bring in artisan work and craftsmanship work where it still feels modern and fresh?
I think a lot of that comes down to the combination of materials, truly. I think it's maybe not so much the style, but the combination of materials. So metal and glass are huge together in a more modern application instead of wood, perhaps. So maybe the glass is etched, maybe the metal maybe is all reeded and you're making a beautiful coffee table with a smoked glass top. That would be more modern in styling than it would be traditional, and that takes two craftsmen to be able to produce that one coffee table for you, or a designer.
Right. So if you have a limited budget, how do you decide where to splurge and where to save without compromising?
I think one of the most important things to think about, first of all, is longevity of your piece. Are you going to have this piece for 10 years? Is this an accent piece in a room that might run you 2 years instead? And I think that's where we really look at where to spend and where to pull back. So if I was going to start, I would say start with your lampshades. Everybody has lamps. You could up the ante on your lampshades, go custom, and work with a sewing room or a craftsperson who knows how to do pleated shades with accent ribbons or with velvets, so that you're adding wow, but the investment isn't that large. It's less than a yard of fabric. You could probably find it at a flea market, but the customization then of your lamp, you've really elevated it.
Okay, and if you were going to like really spend on something or a couple things, you don't have to limit it to one. I want to know what all the things that you think somebody should spend money on.
I would definitely do a statement light fixture.
Okay.
Light fixtures really take the room to the next level. Everybody has a couch and a coffee table and a side table, but a light fixture is really the jewelry of a room. If I were going to spend my money, it would be on an incredible light fixture, and it would be handcrafted, maybe by a plaster maker, which would be phenomenal and wouldn't be as trendy because it would be white in the plaster, which doesn't go out of style. I would definitely employ a metal worker. I love metal in rooms. And
to do what?
I would do the base of cabinets. I could do a beautiful table where the wood is the top or the drawer, but the base could be metal. You could make it look like twigs and leaves. You could really have an artisanal moment. A metal bed with
A metal
vines
bed?
growing up it.
Have you done this?
I have not, but I actually just saw it done, and it blew me away, and I actually met the manufacturer here yesterday. And I had noticed it in a magazine, and then I noticed it on their booth, and I couldn't believe it. And it started with little florets, that was it. And I think something that keeps coming up is the only limitation truly is your imagination and the limitation of the materials. That's it.
Right, I mean, if you can dream it these days, you can do
dream it, you can have it.
Okay, have you ever spent too much money for yourself on something that didn't end up being worth it?
Oh, it didn't end up being worth it. I would say probably a fabric failure. So a fabric that was great but didn't last as long as I expected it to, which I think a lot of us went through in COVID, where we were overusing our couch because we were home, and you lived 5 years in 2 years on your couch, and
everything needed to be recovered after that?
Everything needed to be recovered, yeah. So I would say fabric failure. Other than that, no, because I'm very slow to make choices for my home.
Intentional.
Totally intentional, and also we're exposed to so much as designers that, you know, we don't necessarily get decision paralysis, but we see so much, we consider more carefully.
Speaking of something maybe considered, I want to bring up a photo that we have, because in one of your projects you worked with an artisan to create some stunning flowers on a wall.
Plaster maker in Toronto.
Wow.
Anthony Vallon Studios. Anthony's amazing. I fully admit I have a crush on his brain. He's amazing.
So funny.
He's amazing. And the client that we created this for, her favorite flower was the daisy. And I created 3 sort of distinctive rooms in her foyer of her home. And we wanted art in the first that was historical. The middle room, we wanted art that was modern. And the third, as you walk through, we went for texture. So we went to Anthony's studio, and I said, I think I want to do this huge daisy wall for our client. What do you think? And Anthony's first reaction always is, this is amazing. And then it was, well, how are we going to attach them and layer them? And you can see here too, some of the leaves are folded forward, some are flat against the wall. I never would have come up with the different layered textures that he did and the different shapes for the daisies. So it was incredible to see him make them. And then he arrived with boxes of daisies.
And how did he attach them to the wall?
They are all attached with plaster to the wall.
And some of them have the yellow centers and others don't.
He painted them afterwards and then added a little bit of yellow to some and a little bit of gold to some and left some white. So he and I sat with this wall and I couldn't watch the installation. I was terrified of them falling. He didn't break any of them, which was unbelievable. And then we sat there and sort of picked which ones we would do yellow and which we would do gold together. I was thrilled with the results, as was
and nobody
the client.
has this except your client.
Nobody has it, and in fact, she went on and built another house and moved on from this house, and we did another installation that was completely different. Anthony's amazing. Every time we work together, he always says, oh, we have to do more, and what else can we do? And we always push the envelope.
Well, that's helpful to have one of those people.
Totally is.
All right, I also have another visual I want to put up. You also make fabric yourself with screen printing. Am I reading this correctly?
So I have done it in conjunction with Christopher Farr Fabrics. I was so lucky. I was able to go to the factory in England and make fabric with them. We used the Christopher Farr patterns and then I recolored them. I reimagined them, and I have to say it was an unbelievable process. And they let me play with the screens and pull everything along. It moved me. It was incredible. So we did this with blues and purples, which I find very difficult to find in the market. So we did this, and we've actually sold the color combination to a lot of clients in our projects. That's the owner, Mikkel, of Christopher Farr Fabrics, who is brilliant.
We featured her, actually.
She's amazing, and being able to I spent the whole day there.
I love
this
that.
Is the lavender and the blue, and then These were the colors that I had sent ahead that you can just see.
Oh, that's so pretty.
And then we remade them.
I'm like getting very excited watching these
It
videos.
was amazing. It was amazing. And then I had recolored Carnival for them, which was one of their original fabric patterns, in purple and pink and green years ago. And it still thrills me to see it installed by other designers in their projects.
I also feel like you can't go wrong with a stripe.
You can't go wrong with a stripe.
Everybody needs a stripe.
Everybody needs a stripe. Every project needs a stripe. And in fact, I was just in Paris at Deco Off at the fabric show, and every house, every fabric house is launching a stripe collection this year. So if you don't have a stripe you like yet,
get a stripe.
They are coming. Yes. Yeah.
Do you find a lot of inspiration from going to these different shows? What do you come back with that sort of like, do you just get recharged from an inspiration standpoint?
I get recharged. It's also a moment to be able to connect with our reps in a setting that is more than a quick half-hour run through.
Not on Zoom.
Yeah, and it's relationship building with other creatives from all over the world that you run into or are introduced to or sit beside at a dinner. But more so, it's seeing what's coming. It's seeing the brilliance of Pierre Frey, for instance, and what they are launching that we will see in 5 months. But knowing what's coming tends to change how I start to tweak our projects.
Well, speaking of what's to come, I mean, what are you seeing out there in this world, whether it be from a trip to Paris or wherever, that you think is going to be big?
I'm finding scale and the play of scale is really starting to change. There was a beautiful wallpaper company in Paris from Belgium who produced a print that were poppies. And poppies aren't new, everybody has seen a poppy, but it was offered in 3 different scales.
Oh.
And the 3rd scale was actually installed on the wall in the showroom, and it was massive. So an 11-foot wide wall only had 3 poppies on it. That takes a traditional moment, a traditional flower, into a modern home, because the scale is completely different and perceived differently. Where when the repeat is very small, it's more traditional, a little more British. And I think that that sort of playing with scale means that we could actually incorporate patterns into different styles of projects, but with this same object.
It's also really just a smart move to make different scales of
Smart
the same
business
thing
move.
Because you look at a room and you're like, okay, I have 2 slipper chairs that need to be recovered, but I
Yes.
already have a small print, so I can't use this because I need a bigger print. Well, now they have it in the larger print.
I think too, scale and playing with it really makes a room more interesting.
Yeah.
And
right.
I think that when we see people who love small scale and they do everything in a small scale, the eye doesn't pick it up and it doesn't have the energy, where if we switch scale, it provides a room with energy and it's way more interesting, especially big light fixtures.
Well, you're just a fountain of information, Cynthia. I could just sit here for another 30 minutes talking to you, but I'm getting the wrap it up behind me. But thank you so much for coming by, and thank you for inviting us into your home on
Absolutely.
Homeworthy. It was such a treat. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course.